sectors of our economy and to tackle the chronic problems underlying the UK economy, the woeful imbalance in productivity across the country, but also the imbalance between British business, between the go-getting world beaters represented by so many people in this room and the long comet tail whose potential is frankly yet to be realised, that don't have the skills, particularly the IT skills, as Rishi, the Chancellor, so often points out, that don't have the banks behind them, don't have the investment. And that is the mission of this country, to unite and level up across the whole, of this government, to unite and level up across the whole country. And I'm going to be honest, it is a moral mission. And as you get older, I find the funny thing is you get more idealistic and less cynical. It's a moral thing, but it's also an economic imperative. Because if this country could achieve the same kind of geographical balance and dispersion of growth and wealth that you find in most of our most successful economic comparators, and if all our businesses could reach more balance in their levels of productivity, then there would be absolutely no stopping us. And we would achieve what I believe we can and become the biggest and most successful economy in Europe. And today, fate has handed us an opportunity to do that. When the first industrial revolution began 250 years ago, it was British industry that had first mover advantage. For hundreds of years, we maintained that pace. Right up until the beginning of the 20th century, we were producing more coal, smelting more iron, building more ships and boilers and making more machines than virtually any other country on Earth. And today, we are on the brink of another revolution, a green industrial revolution. And again, there are many ways in which we have first mover advantage. And today I want to tell you and the CBI how Britain is going to win in the new green industrial revolution, provided we act and act now. I've had some pretty wonderful jobs in my life, but among the most purely hedonistic, I would rank motoring correspondent of GQ magazine. I drove Ferraris, Maseratis, Nissan Skylines, Proton Sagas, you name it, I drove it. And I learned to admire the incredible diversity of the UK's specialist motor manufacturing sector, which is actually the biggest in the world. And I've spent hours in the traffic listening to the porridge-like burble and pop of the biggest and most sophisticated internal combustion engines ever made. And I've heard that burble turn into an operatic roar as I put my foot down and burned away from the lights at speeds I would not now confess to my protection officers. In that time, that great era, I only tried 2 EVs, electric vehicles, an extraordinary wheeled rabbit hutch that was so tiny you could park it sideways, and I tried the first Tesla for sale in this country, for GQ. It expired in the fast lane of the M40, I'm sad to say. I think they've got a lot better. And when a few years later, I tried as Mayor of London to get London motorists to go electric, and we put charging points around the city, I must confess that they were not then a soar-away success, and they stood forlorn, like some piece of unused outdoor gym equipment. But 10 years after that, the tipping point has come, hasn't it? UK sales of EVs are now increasing at 70% a year. And in 2030, we're ending the market for new hydrocarbon ICEs, internal combustion engine vehicles, ahead of other European countries. And our companies are responding. Here in the Northeast, Nissan has decided to make an enormous bet on new electric vehicles, and together with Envision, there is now a massive new gigafactory for batteries. And around the world, these cars are getting ever more affordable. And at Glasgow, 2 weeks ago, the tipping point came as motor manufacturers, representing a third of the world market, including the EU and America, announced that they would go electric by 2035. And of course, Glasgow was far bigger and more important than that. 250 years after we launched the first industrial revolution, we are showing the world how to power past coal. When I was a kid, 80% of our electricity came from coal. I remember those huge barges taking coal up the Thames to Battersea Power Station, and those 4 chimneys belching fumes into the face and lungs of the city. By the time I became mayor, Battersea was a wreck, closed for being simply too polluting and good for nothing except the final shootout in gangster movies. But in 2012, we were still 40% dependent on coal. Today, only 10 years later, coal supplies less than 2% of our power, and by 2024 it will be down to zero. And Battersea, of course, is a great funkopolitan hive of cafes and restaurants and hotels and homes, thanks to the vision of the former mayor. And every time I made that point to leaders in Glasgow about the speed of the switch that we've made from coal, I could see them thinking about it. And I could see them thinking, right, okay, maybe this is doable. And when I was a kid, literally 0% of our energy came from wind. And it seemed faddish and ludicrous to imagine that we could light and heat our homes with a technology that dated from the 9th century Persia, I think. And yet, look at the coast of the northeast where we are today. Row after row, stretching out into the North Sea, beautiful white mills as we claim a new harvest, rich and green, from the drowned meadows of Doggerland. And on some days, we derive almost half this country's energy needs with the biggest offshore wind production anywhere in the world and growing the whole time. And that tipping point, having been reached, the pace of change is now going to accelerate like a new Tesla. Because I can tell you, as a former motoring correspondent, EVs may not burble like sucking doves, and they may not have that rum, rum, rah, rah that you love, but they have so much torque that they move off the lights faster than a Ferrari. And we're now embarked on a new epoch, and in just a few years' time, after almost a century of using roughly the same technology, we are going to change radically. We're going to change radically. Our cars, our trucks, our buses, our ships, our boats, our planes, our trains, our domestic heating systems, our farming methods, our industrial processes, our power generation, and much else besides. And I can tell you the force driving that change won't be government, it won't even be business, though business and government together will have a massive influence. It will be the consumer. It will be the young people of today, the disciples of David Attenborough, not just in this country, but around the world, who can see the consequences of climate change and who will be demanding better from us. And I confidently predict that in just a few years' time, it will be as noisome, offensive to the global consumer to open a new coal-fired power station as it is to get on a plane and light up a cigar. And as the world reaches this pivotal moment post-Glasgow, it's vital that we recognise not just the scale of the challenge, but the opportunity now for British business and industry. Because in the end, it is you, it is business people who will fix this problem. Governments don't innovate. Governments don't produce new products and get out and sell them in the marketplace. And though governments can spend tens, if not hundreds of billions, we know that the market has hundreds of trillions. And yet we also know that government has a vital role in making that market and in framing the right regulation. And to ensure that the British business succeeds in this new world, we've set out a 10-point plan for government leadership. A new decalogue that I produced exactly a year ago when I came down from Sinai, and I said to my officials, the new 10 commandments, thou shalt develop 1, offshore wind, 2, hydrogen, 3, nuclear power, 4, zero-emission vehicles, 5, green public transport, cycling and walking, 6, jet zero and green ships, 7, greener buildings, 8, carbon capture and storage, 9, nature and trees, 10, green finance. And for each of those objectives, we are producing a roadmap so that you in the private sector can see the opportunities ahead and what you need to do. And we're regulating so as to require new homes and buildings to have EV charging points, with another 145,000 charging points to be installed thanks to these regulations. We're investing in new projects to turn wind power into hydrogen, and the net zero strategy is expected to trigger about £90 billion of private sector investment, driving the creation of high-wage, high-skilled jobs across the UK as part of our mission to unite and level up across the country. Not just in the green industrial revolution, of course, but in all sectors of the economy. And to help you and to build the platform, to give you the advantage you need, we're now waging a cross-Whitehall campaign to solve our productivity puzzle and to rebalance our lopsided economy. Fixing our infrastructure with investment on a scale not seen since the Victorians. And we must begin with energy and power generation. If we're going to allow our manufacturing industry to succeed, we must end the unfairness that UK high energy intensive manufacturing pays so much more than our competitors overseas. And that's why we are going to address the cost of our nuclear power. And we're all now paying for the historic underinvestment in nuclear power. Which country first split the atom? Which country had the first civilian nuclear power plant? It was this one. And why have we allowed ourselves to be left behind? Well, you tell me. So we're investing not just in big nuclear power plants, but in small nuclear reactors as well. And we're consulting on classifying this essential technology as green investment so that we can get more investment flowing in and ahead of the EU. Lenin once said that the communist revolution was Soviet power plus the electrification of the whole country. Well, I hesitate to quote Lenin, Tony, before the Confederation of British Industry. But the coming industrial revolution is green power plus the electrification of the whole country. We're electrifying our cars, we're electrifying our rail. Last week, we announced 3 vast new high-speed lines, cutting the time from London to Manchester by an hour, and creating a new crossrail of the north, cutting the time from Manchester to Leeds from 55 to 33 minutes, a crossrail from the Midlands, cutting journey times from Birmingham to Nottingham from 1 hour and 14 minutes to 26 minutes. But these plans are far richer and more ambitious than some of the coverage has perhaps suggested. To solve this country's transport problems, you can't just endlessly carve your way through virgin countryside. You have to upgrade and to electrify. You have to use the tracks that already exist and bring them back into service. And we are doing the beaching reversals. That's putting in lines that were taken out sadly in the earlier this century, in the last century. And you have to put in other transport networks as well. You have to put in clean buses. You have to improve 4,000 new clean green buses we're putting in. And of course, you have to fix the roads as well. We cannot be endlessly hostile to road improvements, and we have to do it now. We have to fix it now. I know that there are some people who think that working habits have been remade by the pandemic and that everyone will be working only on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday in an acronym that I won't repeat. I don't want to be dogmatic about this, but I have my doubts. And it's not just that young people need to be in the office to learn and to compete and to pick up social capital. There are also sound evolutionary reasons why Mother Nature does not like working from home. So I prophesy that people will come back, Tony. They will come back to the office and they will come back on the roads and in the rail. But people also want choice. And that's why we must put in the gigabit broadband as we are. Gone up massively just in the last couple of years from I think 7% coverage when I became Prime Minister to 65% at the beginning of next year. And so with safer streets, with great local schools, with fantastic broadband, forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. People will have the confidence to stay nearer the place they grew up, to start business, and business will have the confidence to invest. And then, of course, there is one thing that business wants and that this country needs far more than 100 supersonic rail links, far more than broadband, and that is skills and the people that you all need to staff your business. And it's an astonishing fact that the 16 to 18-year-olds in this country are getting 40% less time in instruction than our competitors in the OECD. And so we're turning that round. We're focusing on skills, 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 investing in our FE colleges, our apprentices, in the know-how and confidence of young people. And since, as everybody knows, 80% of the 2030 workforce are already in work, we're giving every adult who needs it the chance to get a level 3 skill, £3,000 for a lifetime skills guarantee. We're supporting boot camps for everything from IT to entrepreneurship. And at this pivotal moment in our economic history, we are taking advantage of our new freedoms to deliver free ports as well as free trade deals and to regulate differently and better. Lengthen our lead in all the amazing new technologies of the 21st century. AI, cyber, quantum computing, and all the rest, and all the applications of those technologies to the areas in which we excel. So you get fintech, medtech, edtech, biotech, medtech, nanotech, agtech, green tech. So you sound basically like 15th century Mexico. And that is what this country is doing. There are only 3 nations in the world that have produced more than 100 tech unicorns, and they are, as you will know, well, which are they? Let me just see if you've been paying attention to any of my speeches in the last few. Which 3 nations have produced more than 100 tech unicorns? Correct. The United States, China, and the United Kingdom. And the wonderful thing about the more than 100 UK tech unicorns is that they are dispersed now far more evenly across the whole of the UK than the tech unicorns of some of our rival or competitor economies. And that's a fantastic thing. We want to see the dispersal of this growth and development across the UK. That's why the UK has doubled investment in scientific research. And again, we want to see the benefits of that research across the whole of the country. But in the end, and this is the most important message of all, there are limits to what governments can do. And I just want to be absolutely clear about this, because this has been an extraordinary period. We've had the financial crisis of 2008, where government had to intervene on a massive scale, then COVID, when government had to intervene on a massive scale. But government cannot fix everything, and government sometimes should get out of your hair. And government should make sure that there is less regulation and indeed less taxation. And the true driver of growth is not government. It is the energy and dynamism and originality of the private sector. And Tony, yesterday I went, as we all must, to Peppa Pig World. I don't know if you've been to Peppa Pig World. Hands up anyone who's been to Peppa Pig World? Not enough. I was a bit hazy what I would find at Peppa Pig World, but I loved it. And Peppa Pig World is very much my kind of place. It has very safe streets, discipline in schools, heavy emphasis on new mass transit systems, I notice, even if they're a bit stereotypical about Daddy Pig. But the real lesson for me, going to Peppa Pig World, and I'm surprised you haven't been there, was about the power of UK creativity. Who would have believed, Tony, that a pig that looks like a hairdryer, or possibly a sort of Picasso-like hairdryer, a pig that was rejected by the BBC, would now be exported to 180 countries with theme parks both in America and in China, as well as in the New Forest, and a business that's worth at least £6 billion to this country, £6 billion and counting. Now, I think that is pure genius, don't you? Peppa Pig, and no government in the world, no Whitehall civil servant would conceivably have come up with Peppa. So my final message to you, as we stand on the brink of this green industrial revolution, and we prepare to use our new regulatory freedoms in what I believe will be a very strong post-COVID rebound. We are blessed. We are blessed not just with capital markets and the world's best universities and incredible pools of liquidity in London and all the right time zone and the right language and opportunity across the whole country. We're also blessed with the amazing inventive power and range of British business, and that, above all, is what fills me with confidence, members of the CBI, for the days ahead. Thank you very much for your kind attention this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. And if you're watching at Peppa Pig World, we'd be delighted to welcome you into CBI membership. We've got a few questions from the audience, from our members, some pre-submitted questions, which I'll moderate, and then, Prime Minister, I know you'll want to take questions from the press. Matt Boyle from Turntide. Matt, do you want to give us your question? Yeah, there should be a microphone above you, so just speak out loud.
So great region, Prime Minister, best in the country, bar none, and that's from a Scotsman. So we've been at the forefront. I'm Matt Boyle from Turntide Technologies. We've been at the forefront of the green revolution for over 60 years. We attracted a substantial amount, over £100 million worth of investment in June of this year, partly because of the capability that there is in the region, and partly to do with the markets that we served, which include automotive, aerospace, marine, all the ones you've just mentioned. What can government do to help me secure more funding, which is available, into the North East?
Well, thank you. Well, I'm very, very keen to help supply you with the confidence to continue to invest in the way that you are. We've already put, I think, about £26 billion into the green industrial revolution, into the 10-point plan. That is generating or helping to secure about 440,000 jobs across the country. But it's not just about putting government money in, though that is vital. It's also about having the right tax framework so that you can make some of the big investments that you need to make. So for instance, the super deduction for capital investment of 125% is, I think, proving to be of great value to business as they invest in their long-term future. Well, one of the reasons I mentioned that we've been able to put in a lot of fibre optic broadband, gigabit broadband, in the last year or so. That's largely because of the super deduction, or quite substantially because of the super deduction. So we have plenty of wonderful plans for the North East. You should, and Ben Houchen certainly has plenty of plans. Don't forget, if there's a particular plan you have for Teesside, Teesside is going to be one of the new 8 free ports where there will be super fertilized loam for your investment. So the tax benefits if it's for here, whether it's Teesside or Tyneside, the tax benefits should be considerable.
Thanks very much, Prime Minister, and thank you, Matt. Okay, Natasha Thomas from Sage. Natasha.
Sage provides 1 million businesses in the UK with the technology they need to run and grow their business. And here in the North East, we have 160,000 small businesses bringing the innovation, investment, highly skilled jobs into the region. So will you commit to putting entrepreneurship, enterprise at the heart of the Levelling Up agenda so we can see the next generation of digitally enabled, sustainable, community-focused small businesses across the UK?
Yes, I will. Well, thank you very much for that. And that's why I think entrepreneurship is a crucial part of, a massive part of what we're doing. This green industrial revolution can't just be some gigantic corporatist venture between the British government and the giants of the CBI. It's going to be driven by brilliant startups who come up with fantastic ideas that then become £100 million, £1 billion companies. And it's that spirit of entrepreneurship that's going to be absolutely crucial. And we have, as I said to you earlier on, we have boot camps for entrepreneurs in order to encourage them even further.
And increasingly members of the CBI as well. Tobin Hughes from Transport North East. Tobin.
Prime Minister, you've reminded us earlier on that your government quite rightly places a lot of emphasis on improved infrastructure as a driver of levelling up. And you've referred to last week's integrated rail plan. But the East Coast Main Line, the main rail route through our region, doesn't have sufficient capacity for today's needs, let alone for the next 20 years. And the integrated rail plan didn't make many commitments to sorting it out. So can you reassure us that the government remains committed to improving infrastructure and transport links between the key economic drivers across the north?
Yes, I certainly. Thanks, Tobin. Yes, I certainly can. And I must say, I thought that, as a lesson in what happens when you tell the British people that we're investing £96 billion in the biggest ever railway programme for 100 years, I thought that some of the coverage was missing the point. Let me put it that way. So Birmingham to Newcastle is 40 minutes quicker under the IRP. Newcastle. So from here to from Newcastle to London is 20 minutes shaved off because of the upgrades to the East Coast Main Line. And don't forget that this is also this is creating you are mad as a railway enthusiast, which I am, to think that you always have to dig huge new trenches through virgin countryside and villages and housing estates in order to do high-speed rail. If we'd done Crossrail like that, we couldn't. We had to use lots of existing line. So the Northern Powerhouse Rail will have about 40 miles of new high-speed line from Warrington to Marsden. But then you speed up the rest by electrification and other improvements, and that's how you get the massive gains that are going to come. You're also, as I said earlier on, you're also doing a Crossrail of the Midlands, hooking up the Birmingham and Nottingham in a way that's never been seen before, and that will drive a commuter-style confidence in the network that we haven't seen in this part of the country for ever. And we talk about the legacy of coal. One of the reasons the network in this part of the country is so inadequate is basically because it was built to supply coal, to move coal around the country. It wasn't built as a commuter network. Well, what we're going to do is change all that, and we're putting in. I was going to say oyster style, but it's not. We've gone beyond oyster. It's now contactless, tapping in, tapping out service at 700 stations around the whole of the network, which will give you again that ease of use, that commuter style ease of use, and I think help to drive the agglomeration effects, the confidence in the service that generate jobs and growth.
So I'm going to take another one or two from the audience. So if you have a question and you haven't submitted it in advance, we will take an extra couple and then we'll get the press in. But Ruth Harrison from ThoughtWorks.
Good morning, Prime Minister. I have a two-part question. The North East region is fast building a reputation as a digital economy, yet coding skills are in critically short supply. What efforts will the government make to expedite skilling of this workforce for the new digital economy, which has estimated that the North East region has 67,000 open coding roles and growing? And part two, if I can be so cheeky, coding is the ubiquitous language of the world. When will the government overhaul the analogue education system to include coding as a mandatory subject to be taught in schools, ensuring our young people leave school equipped to secure meaningful employment in the new digital industry?
Thank you very much. And coding is of huge importance, and it is taught in a great many schools now as part of the basic curriculum, and really from quite a young age. You see kids with laptops learning how to code, and that's a fantastic thing. But we've got to make sure that the SME, the small and medium-sized businesses in particular, have a better understanding of IT and of the digital economy, because it is the great resource of the 21st century is going to be data, and already is data. It's knowing what your customers are looking for, who they are, where they are, and what they're searching for, and that's what all the big companies are doing. If the smaller companies could have that kind of understanding as well, then you'd be a long way towards levelling up.
Prime Minister, just whilst I'm waiting for other members of the audience, I wonder if I could take a prerogative and ask a question around business investment, which I spoke about in my speech. We've just got bad at it as a country in the last few decades, and it's due to come back lower after the crisis. And yet confidence amongst businesses, I think, is pretty high. We're big fans of the super deduction, but of course it runs out in a year or so. I'm just wondering what else you are thinking about how we really unleash what is quite a lot of capital and quite a lot of optimism on the part of British business, but somehow we have failed collectively to really unleash that business investment. Any thoughts on that one?
I think I was talking about it to the Chancellor last night, because it's a chronic problem of UK industry and business. So look at the science and technology, and we're putting another 22 billion into science and technology R&D. But actually, the UK business is way down the OECD batting order when it comes to investing in R&D ourselves. Why don't UK businesses invest in that way? It's one of the key reasons for our relative lack of productivity. And that's why we're putting in the super deduction that I talked about for capital. Maybe there are other incentives we could give, but I think it's also a cultural thing. People have got to understand that if you want to have a long-term success for your business, and if you want to keep ahead of the game, if you want to keep innovating, then you've got to invest. And I think that's a message that everybody needs to grasp.
Yeah, it's a central message of Seize the Moment, Prime Minister. And I think we should continue to explore, myself, yourself, the Chancellor and others, how we use this moment, because I think you're right about this moment and the net zero opportunity to unlock that investment. Let's take one or two more from members if anybody wants to come in, and then we'll get the press in. Yes, just tell us your name and your company.
Hello,
Please
Jane.
Stand up, just so that we can catch you.
Hello, Jane Robinson from Newcastle University. Prime Minister, you've talked about the importance of innovation and also of skills. One of the challenges is often the sort of siloing of those innovation agendas and skills agenda. I wonder your views on what government can do to help universities work with industry and also colleges to make sure that we're connecting that need for high-level skills with the future economy that you've described.
Thanks, Joan. I think the crucial thing is for some universities do it better than others, but I think most British universities are now getting into the habit of setting up arms or hubs or incubator departments where they make sure they work hand in glove with business, and so that their graduates, their postgraduates are able to set up companies, perhaps with some seed funding from the government or from the university, working with business on ideas that can change the world. And that's how so many of the breakthroughs of the 21st century are starting to happen. So universities play an absolutely crucial part in the green industrial revolution. You can see it happening across the whole of the UK, and it is one of the great glories of this country that we have so many world-class universities. I think for a long time we weren't brilliant at turning the ideas of those universities into commercial gold, but we're getting much better at it today.
Prime Minister, I'll let you take away questions from the press.
Thank you very much, Tony. Can we go to Simon Jack of the BBC?
Microphone's coming, Simon.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Simon Jack, BBC News. The companies that emerged from the pandemic emerged with higher debts, facing higher energy costs, facing labour shortages, material shortages, and yet this government has imposed tens of billions in new business taxes over the last year and ripped up and scrapped key parts of the levelling up, the flagship levelling up project, HS2, particularly in the north. How is that business friendly?
Well, Simon, first of all, I think I tried laboriously to explain again what we're doing with our rail package, and it is fantastic. We're spending another £96 billion on improving rail services in this country. That is 3 new chunks of high-speed line, as I say, from Crewe to Manchester, from Warrington to Marsden, and from Birmingham to Nottingham. Triangle, right? Inverted triangle. That is, and it will deliver effectively a crossrail for the north and a crossrail for a high-speed Northern Powerhouse rail, plus an amazing new link from East Midlands to West Midlands. 1 hour 40. Just remind you those numbers: 1 hour 14 minutes to 26 minutes. So I utterly and categorically reject your suggestion that we are nickeling and diming the investment in railways. It's a fantastic thing. It's transformatory. Nothing seen like it for a century. On corporation tax and on general tax of business, don't forget we're still the lowest in the G7. And I mentioned the super deduction, the 125% super deduction, which is proving very attractive. And if you ask me, does the Chancellor want to go further and reduce burdens on taxpayers and business? Yes, of course he does. But don't forget, Simon, that we've just been through a pandemic where we had to look after people to the tune of £407 billion. And that was a big fiscal event, and extremely tough for the taxpayer. You've got to be prudent. You've got to manage things sensibly, and we will get to relieving more of the burdens of taxation. But you've got to do it in a prudent and a reasonable way. And what you shouldn't be doing is racking up unsustainable debts, because that's more tax for future generations. Helen Ann Smith of Sky.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News. You've spoken extensively about the importance of your levelling up agenda, but just in the last week, we've seen a row back on what was initially promised on HS2 and Northern Powerhouse Rail for all the benefits of the integrated rail plan. It is a row back on what was originally promised. And again, tonight, a vote tonight on the cap to social care that will disproportionately hit the less well off. How can you reassure people in regions like this that you are committed to that levelling up agenda? And secondly, if I may, there are many litany of problems facing businesses going forward in the next few months: a supply chain problem, labour crisis, a hike in inflation, and so on. Many say the last thing they'll be able to cope with on top of all this is more COVID restrictions. Can you guarantee businesses that they'll be able to continue to trade unhindered this winter? Thank you.
Okay, right. So Helen Ann, first of all, number one point, it's not a rowing back. It's better. The thing that we're doing, would you rather wait decades while we plough through green countryside, delivering nothing but high-speed rail, or would you rather have a much better plan that is 10 years earlier, that delivers massive commuter benefits across the whole of the North East, North West, the East and West Midlands? That's what we're doing. It is a colossal plan, and it delivers fantastic commuter benefits in real time, and that is, I think, what people want to see. And on the point about the social care reforms, these are incredibly generous, and they're much better than the existing system, because under the existing system, nobody gets any support if they have assets of £23,000 or more. Now you get support if you have £100,000 or less. So we're helping people, and it's in fact more generous than some of the original proposals of Andrew Dilnot, because it helps people not just who are in residential care, but also people who benefit from domiciliary care as well. And we're finally tackling a problem that has bedeviled this country for decades, been very, very unfair on people who have got dementia or Alzheimer's and been forced to face catastrophic, ruinous costs for that care when somebody who has cancer or some other affliction does not. So I think we're addressing a long-standing social injustice, and it will benefit the people of this country. And on your point about COVID, I would say we don't see any. I do see what you mean about what's happening in other European countries, and of course we're concerned about the potential from that disease. You've got to be humble in the face of nature. But at the moment, we see nothing in the data to say that we need to move from Plan A to Plan B or any other plan. So that's where we are at present. The best single thing you can all do is get your booster. And as I say, when you're called forward to get it, please do so. Joanna Partridge of The Guardian.
Morning, Prime Minister. Joanna Partridge from The Guardian. You've struck a conciliatory tone with business this morning, as though you're trying to mend the relationship a bit. But you're putting the onus on business to invest and to innovate in the green economy. Are you really giving them the confidence to do so? You also, for example, mentioned that you want to end the unfairness of intensive energy industries. But this is something that business has been calling for years, and it's in your gift to change it. Why haven't you?
Well, thank you, Joanna. I don't know what you mean by conciliatory. I don't think I've ever been. I've never been anything other than business's #1 fan. If you look at for decade after decade of speeches to the CBI, long before you were in charge, Tony. I think that business has shown amazing ability to adapt. We are standing on the threshold, at the top of a new green industrial revolution, whether it's a green piste or a more difficult piste. I don't know why I'm getting this skiing metaphor. It could be difficult or it could be easy. I think it actually is going to generate huge numbers of high-wage, high-skill jobs across this country. And what the government is doing is setting out very clearly the regulatory parameters that we think are right. We're setting out the roadmap by which we think we need to, for each of those 10 items in those 10 projects in the 10-point plan that I set out. We're setting out the ways in which business can get involved and the opportunities for business, and we're also stimulating the huge swathes of activity with tens of billions of government funding, and it is a gigantic project. All I'm trying to say today is that it is not something that government can achieve alone. But what I'm also saying is that there is the consumer wants us to do it. And young people, your target markets around this country and indeed around the world, want us now to seize this agenda. And I think seizement is the phrase. Meghna Nanu of the Daily Telegraph.
Prime Minister, what is your message to the dozens of Tory MPs who are reportedly considering voting against your social care amendment this evening?
Thanks, Meghna. Well, I just repeat what I said earlier on. Please don't be under illusion. This is much more generous than any previous system. It helps. It's very, very progressive, as Andrew Dilnot and others have said themselves. Hitherto, you've got no support unless you have assets of 23,000 or less. Now the state steps in to help you when you have assets of 100,000 or less, and actually 100,000 or less. And for the first time, there's a limit on the cost that you can be asked to pay, and don't forget there is a housing disregard. So if you or your spouse are living in your home, then that is disregarded for the purpose of the assessment of your assets. So it is very progressive. It's designed to help people deal with the appalling problem of dementia and the cost of tackling it, which I think has been something that this country has failed to deal with for a long time, and a high time it did. And what it also offers, since we're is talking to a bunch of business people, don't forget what it also offers. By putting in the cap, you have the potential for the market to come in and offer an insurance product. Because finally, and that was the reason why the insurance market couldn't deal with the cost of care, because the risk seemed to be unlimited. If you cap it, you create the potential for a product, and you help people all the more because they can then insure themselves. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, members of the press. Thank you, members. And now we're going to have a little bit of a debrief and discussion on the morning's events so far. So welcome back, James. Come and join me on stage.
Thanks very much, Tony. Thank you very much, everyone. I thought it was a little unfair on Daddy Pig, because if you're a follower of Daddy Pig, you'll know that he is the original Tom Daley of the high diving board. And so, looking at the Prime Minister, I thought it was just important to just set the record straight on that. I know everyone in the room will have their own views. Tony, let's get tucked in if we can. I suppose to one of the things that the Prime Minister said and that you touched on, which I think is